I'm Liz Whiteacre, and today we're going to explore what your collection or ePortfolio says about you and the choices you make as you develop it. This week's objectives is to organize your ePortfolio effectively, and we'll talk about some different strategies you may want to employ. We'll think about titling your ePortfolio in an engaging way, going beyond English 270 portfolio. We'll also think about how to write a strong writer's biography that you can use both in your collection, your portfolio, and when you post your work to issue. And we'll identify some resources designed to help you create both your ePortfolio in Microsoft Word and how to post it in issue on our LMS. Organizational tips. So you have a big body of work that you have been creating all term. In this assignment, I'm asking you to introduce your work in a reflection essay or discuss your work after you've shared it and perhaps an afterword or a reflection at the end. Or you could even choose to present your collected works and your reflection essay as a separate document if you don't necessarily want to share that component with, say, family and friends when you share your portfolio, and it's something more just for my eyes only. So there are quite a few different ways that you can go about organizing your work. The first thing you're going to want to do is go through your files and make sure that you have two important things: the first draft of the pieces you want to include, and the most updated, revised, polished draft. I hesitate calling it the final draft because we all know, even in the process of putting together the portfolio, there may be some tweaks and changes made along the way. But you're going to need those two files. You'll need to know that you will have to include in your portfolio and write at some point during the process your reflection essay. So those are the three main components, as well as the writing samples. The writing samples that you're including are based in the three main genres that we have written this term. So samples of your poems, samples of your creative nonfiction or personal essays, and samples of your fiction or your short stories. You can take a timeline approach in your portfolio, thinking about what started first. Right? You might choose to begin with your fairy tale if it's a piece that you really are proud of. And that's the first thing you wrote for the course. And then if you want to kind of go by the curriculum, if you want to share your flash piece or all of your flash pieces, if you'd like to share your short story next, your personal essay, end on your poems. If you even want to start with the rough draft and then present the final draft, so that we're kind of seeing your writing evolve and seeing it progress as you personally progressed as a writer during the term. So that's one method that you could use to organize your work. Another thing you could do is by genre. Let's say you're interested in taking all of your personal essays. Maybe you're including one that's longer and one that's shorter, and maybe you have several that are shorter, and putting them all together. You could have that as a section, and maybe you provide your rough drafts and your final drafts, or your final drafts and your rough drafts, but all of those personal essays are together, all of your poems are together, all of your fiction or your stories are together. And then you'd want to decide, well, what do I want to start with? What might be great for the middle? What do I want to end? So you could go back and use that timeline approach and do fiction, creative nonfiction, poetry. Or you might say, well, it might be nice to break it up a little bit and have something a little bit shorter and put poetry in the center, per se. So genre can certainly help you organize your work if you're not interested in presenting it as a timeline. Another thing that you can think about is your progress as a writer. So here we have a car on the left that's a little bit run down, a little bit rough. Imagine that being the rough draft, and then one on the other side that is shiny, ready to cruise and show itself off. Think of that as your polished work. There are a couple of different approaches. Some students really feel that they have grown so much as a writer, and so they would like to start with their rough drafts and end with their final or polished drafts. Some other students think, oh, why are you making me include that? I have no interest in showing anybody the rough cuts behind the scene. So they choose to showcase their polished work at the beginning of the portfolio and tuck all of the rough drafts together in their own section at the end. So they're kind of, well, they're there, but writers don't have to look at it if they don't want to. So that's another thing to consider. A lot of times students come to a combination of those different strategies. What's most important is that you are sharing your work in a meaningful way. This project transcends the requirement for English 270. All the different students in different classes are putting together portfolios so they can demonstrate their growth as writers in the creative arts. Well, what makes yours a keepsake? What makes yours something that you're excited about 10, 15 years down the road? I had a student contact me a couple years back on Facebook and let me know she had seen one of my poems in a literary magazine and got my contact information. And she let me know that she and her husband, who met in Introduction to Creative Writing, they were in 2 workshop groups together. They connected, they got married, they were about to have their first child, and they said they still sometimes go back and look at their portfolios from 270 and laugh about the people they were then as they were falling in love. And it was wonderful to hear that story 15 years after the fact. So this is something for you. You are creating a book of your work for you to hold on to and remember all of the things you experienced this term, and also preserve these moments where you have beautifully and creatively articulated to other people something that you care about, or something that's happened to you, or something that you've imagined, or in some instances, all three. Uh, what's most important to me as an evaluator is that you have a clear organizational structure. Right? It shouldn't take me 4 hours to locate everything to make sure that you check all the boxes for what you need to have included. That can You can help communicate your structure with a table of contents, and you'll see throughout the course and assignments and stuff that I'll refer to that as the TOC. Your table of contents should list just that, everything that's included in your portfolio, and indicate, well, how are these things grouped, right? So you can have sections in there if you want to have your polished work and your rough drafts, or if you want to say, here's the fiction section and this is what's going on. And including page numbers in your ePortfolio will be helpful then to list those on the table of contents. So if I, or maybe a grandparent or a neighbor or a best friend wants to dive in, they'll be able to go find pieces very quickly if they want to go back and reread them. Making sure that the things are labeled. If you're going to have a section break and you're moving to a new genre, why not include the name of that genre before we turn the page? And you can even embellish that with graphics if you like, pictures that you've taken that might be connected to your pieces or your life, or you can use something like Visual Hunt to go out and find some graphics. And there are resources in our LMS that help you learn how to do that, so that you have graphics like the one on this screen that you're borrowing, and you know that you have the rights to use it because of the Creative Commons or CC license. Also making sure that you label your pieces. Am I looking at the final version or am I looking at the first version? So in your organizational strategy, if you've not grouped all the rough drafts together in a specific section, if you're sprinkling them about with their final pieces, make sure that those are labeled in some way with either a graphic embellishment or literally rough draft underneath the title or up at the top of the page, so that your readers know what they're looking at. Some things you'll want to think about too are titling tips. We have talked about how to title stories, how to title personal essays and fairy tales and poems. Well, you still need to put all of those skills to work and title your portfolio. I want to see everybody move beyond English 270 portfolio, because this is you, this is your work, this is one of a kind, this is outstanding. You are going to be so, you see me getting excited because I just know how excited you're going to be when you get through the hard work and your portfolio is put together. As the quote says here, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you really want to be intentional. Think about this as welcoming readers into your portfolio. We've talked about welcoming people into your pieces. It's the same thing. You could choose to focus on your process, perhaps, as a writer. Is there a title that might suggest what your process is like, or perhaps the types of growth that you've experienced this term? You can also think about a theme. Maybe you've written a lot about the quarantine, right? And then that's something that pops up in all of your works. Or you've written a lot about love, or you've really tried to explore and do a bunch of different types of things. Maybe it's very eclectic. You can also go in and look at all of your pieces and pick one of their tiles to serve as a representative of the entire unit. And these are all title recommendations that we use when we're titling books in general. In English 370 poetry writing, where students create chapbooks of poems in the class rather than a portfolio, we talk about these same strategies for their books as well. So this is a skill that you can use in a variety of different ways, not just titling pieces or portfolios. Here are some examples of past English 270 students' ePortfolio titles, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Amal's title was Perspective. She tried to write from a lot of different points of view, and so she thought that that was kind of a nice umbrella welcome into the pieces that she wrote. Delaney, her ePortfolio was called Creative Musings. She really embraced the prompts and all of her stuff. The topics were all over the place, and she wrote in a lot of different styles. So for her, she felt that she was being creative, she was following her muse, and so that really worked well for her portfolio. Right this second, Kylie went with a bit of a pun there. She wanted to capture that she was writing about her life in the moment in her particular portfolio. Tony came up with creative writing portfolio. He wanted to be very direct, so you knew exactly what you were getting into when you clicked on his issue link. I appreciated that he didn't go with the classic English 270 portfolio. And then there's another one, Burnt Out. Zach, well, that's kind of how he was feeling at the end of the term, working so hard to revise all of his pieces. And he was also nearing his senior year. And so he was kind of feeling that generally that was a part of his process, trying to make sure he engaged and got excited about things. And he talked about that in his reflection essay. And then Victoria, her portfolio was called It Is Life because she was writing about the things she knew and the things all around her. So you'll want to look through your pieces, and I would say kind of read through everything at the start of the process and take some notes on what sounds good to you. And another thing we don't have here would be an example of maybe an image that pops up. Maybe you talk about flowers a lot and you want to tie that into your title. You will need to write a short author's bio, and that can be a little intimidating. Our textbook provides lots of advice for what professionals do, and I've included also in there some information about what students can do. It's essentially an opportunity to let your readers know very quickly who is writing this portfolio. Right, so it can be very bare bones, but you're establishing who you are very briefly. If you want to write, I don't know, a 2-paragraph bio of yourself to include in your book, you can certainly do that as well. But a lot of people, especially since this is going to be posted to a public website, they prefer to stay a little bit more anonymous. So some things you can consider doing are starting with the fact that you're a student. Maybe share what you're studying. Maybe share what type of writing that you like to do the best. And hey, if you were published in your high school literary magazine, absolutely share that information. Maybe you've got poems you can dust off from an anthology project in 3rd grade and you want to let people know. You could do that too. This is an example of my bio back when I was a sophomore and I had just chosen to be an English major. I was starting to write creative pieces and I was asked for a bio. So I dug this out of the old dusty annals to share with you today. So Liz Kirshner, that's my maiden name, is an English major at Indiana University who is double majoring in criminal justice. She enjoys writing about her life as a college student. Right? That's what I was writing about at the time. So something very simple. Let your readers know who's giving them this information. This can be included within your portfolio as a part of that reading experience, or you might choose just to put this in issue in the little comments description underneath your book so that you're able to let people know when they arrive who's the author of this creative work. Follow-up resources. There are lots of resources for you to help you out with this project. In the resources folder in our LMS, I've made short videos that show you how to do different things in Microsoft Word, and there are other tutorials as well. For example, how do you get your page numbers on opposite sides so they're not stuck in the center of the spine, as well as how to save your work as a PDF and how to upload that PDF to the free website issue so that your book looks like a book. Your ePortfolio will flip pages. It's super cool. All you have to do is save your Word file in PDF. So make sure to go in and look at those videos as appropriate for what you need to know and to help you move forward in your project. And don't forget, as always, I have office hours, and you are very welcome to come to those and we can screen share and figure out anything that you have questions about together. Looking ahead, it is all ePortfolio. You are going through all of the pieces you've written, reviewing the assignment guidelines for what the criteria are for the amounts of pages you need to include for each category. You're also calling through. You don't have to include everything you've written as long as you meet the minimum requirement of the certain number of poems. That's all you have to include. If you'd like to include more than that because you've written a lot of stuff you're proud of, you certainly can. If you have questions about the process as you go, again, get in touch, and I cannot wait to see your ePortfolio and get to read your ebook. It is going to be absolutely amazing, and I hope you enjoy the process and journey of putting it all together and seeing what you have created this term.